Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. This is going to be a review of last night's edition of Raw. Monday Night Raw was from the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky. And Monday Night Raw last night, last week we got a decent show. I thought Monday Night Raw last week was decent, surprisingly. And then last night, WWE gave us Monday Night Raw like how it is every single week. We went back to Monday Night Raw being fucking terrible. And that's what this show was last night. Last night's show was fucking awful. Terrible. I mean, what did we get on the show last night? We had an 8-man tag. We had Dolph Ziggler, Roode, Styles, and Omos versus Matt Riddle and Randy Orton, RKBro, and Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, the Street Profits. And we had Bobby Lashley versus Dominik Mysterio, which Adam Pearce wanted to test if Dominic would be able to be on Team Raw. And then we had Biggie versus Chad Gable. We had a fatal 5-way match to determine who would face Becky Lynch, earn an opportunity for the Raw Women's Championship. We had Liv Morgan, Queen Zelina, Carmella, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair. And then in the main event, we had Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens, which in the end, I'll get to explaining that because we all knew it was going to happen. The overall Monday Night Raw last night was fucking terrible. So let's get started with the review. Monday Night Raw opened up last night with Biggie and Kevin Owens. They were shown backstage. Kevin Owens ended up saying that he has been working hard to prove he's not a turncoat like he was in the past. As, he was saying this to Biggie. Biggie was like to Kevin Owens, "Oh, I'm rubbing cocoa butter on my body." Okay, Biggie, we did not need to know that. So Biggie was like to Kevin Owens, "I don't care." So Kevin Owens ended up saying that Biggie is one of the few people who he cares what they think. So Kevin Owens ended up insisting that he had no idea Seth Rollins was going to attack last week. So Biggie was just listening to Kevin Owens, and Biggie said to Kevin Owens that he has a match tonight. "I don't care." That's what he told Kevin Owens, Biggie. So Biggie ended up walking off, and Kevin Owens ended up mumbling to himself, and he ended up saying that he does care. So that was that. So then we had Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins ended up making his way down to the ring, and he comes out, and I'm like, what the fuck is he wearing? He came out wearing a blue coat, which almost made me think that it was a robe. I mean, did he just wake up from his nap just to come out and start the show? I swear, it looked like a robe when he came out. And in my mind, when I saw Seth Rollins come out wearing this blue coat, all I could think of was this. Yeah, that's what I was thinking when he came out with that blue coat. Yeah, I swear. That's what I was thinking of when Seth Rollins came out wearing that blue coat. So Rollins ended up getting on the mic. He ended up welcoming us to Monday Night Rollins. So he was still shown carrying his number one contenders contract. He gets an opportunity to face Biggie for the WWE Championship. He ended up saying that he is our next WWE Champion. Rollins went on to say that he was going to come out and tell us how he plans to lead Team Raw to a victory over those bums, Team SmackDown, at Survivor Series. So we had fans end up chanting, "You look stupid" to Rollins. Of course, look how he looked in that attire last night. So Rollins ended up retaliating back to the crowd. He ended up saying that these morons in Louisville know nothing about fashion. That's fashion there? That was fashion. So Rollins ended up saying, based on what we just saw to open the show, we need to find out tonight who exactly is Kevin Owens. Is Kevin Owens a prize fighter? Is he a hero? Is he the man who will do anything and put his body on the line in the ring for the WWE Universe? And he wanted to say, is he a snake? Is he a gutless, spineless coward? Or is Kevin Owens a liar? So Rollins ended up laughing, ha, 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 ha. So he was talking about how him and Kevin Owens go way back. He ended up saying for as long as he's known Kevin Owens, there's been one thing you can count on with him, and that's that he will stab you in the back any chance that he has. Rollins ended up telling us to ask Kevin Owens' old buddy Sami Zayn if the fans don't believe him. They could ask the New Day. He ended up saying Owens is as low as it gets, and that he cannot be trusted as far as he can be thrown. And that's not very far at all. Rollins ended up saying that tonight when he beats Kevin Owens in the main event, not only will he be the biggest liar in the world, he will be the biggest loser in the world. So then Kevin Owens then came out. Kevin Owens marched to the ring, and Rollins ended up retreating out to the floor. Kevin Owens ended up chasing them around, and they went back into the ring. They started brawling. Owens ended up decking Rollins, sending him out to the floor. Kevin Owens ended up trying to go for a powerbomb on the apron to Rollins. Rollins then escaped. He ended up running away up the ramp. So Kevin Owens was yelling for Rollins to come back to the ring. And Owens ended up throwing Rollins' contract at him. So Kevin Owens was seated in the ring, and Rollins ended up heading to the back. And that was that. But overall, this was a very meh segment to open up Monday Night Raw last night. So then we saw Matt Riddle and Randy Orton backstage. Matt Riddle was ranting about being a super team with the Street Profits. And Orton was like, there's no reason to pick fights with giants because they already have targets on their backs as the Raw Tag Team Champions. So Randy Orton ended up telling Matt Riddle to stay put last week and that he got involved and got hurt because of it. Of course, Matt Riddle went after Omos last week. Omos ended up laying out Matt Riddle once again. So Matt Riddle then brought up the Street Profits. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. And Orton ended up saying that he doesn't care about the Street Profits. So then we had Dawkins and Ford standing behind Matt Riddle and Randy Orton. Orton ended up saying that he meant everything he said about them, about those Street Profits, and that they are on their own. So Orton then walked off. Matt Riddle ended up saying that went about as good as could be expected. So Matt Riddle ended up telling Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins that he will see them in the ring. So that was basically that. And then we went to the 8-man tag. Randy Orton, Matt Riddle, the Street Profits versus Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, AJ Styles, and Omos. This was a okay 8-man tag. We had Randy Orton and Matt Riddle come out first. Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Randy Orton and Matt Riddle were in the ring along with the Street Profits. Styles and Omos came out. And then Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. The match started off with Roode and Ford. They ended up blocking up. Roode ended up taking Ford into the corner. He ended up rocking Ford with a right hand. Ford ended up flying out of the corner. And Roode ended up dropping him with a shoulder. Robert Roode and Montez Ford ended up running the ropes. Ford ended up nailing the drop kick. And then a kip up. And Montez Ford was showing off, doing some push-ups. Dawkins end up coming in. Dawkins and Ford end up double teaming on Roode, and Dawkins went for the cover. Roode ended up kicking out 2. Dawkins then end up grabbing Roode. Roode then end up kneeing Dawkins in the gut, elbowed him over the neck. Dolph end up coming in and delivered a elbow to put Dawkins down. Dawkins was working on Dolph's arm. Orton end up coming in, and Orton ended up dropping Ziggler, started stomping away on Ziggler. Orton ended up stomping on Ziggler's ankles, and Matt Riddle then came in. Both Orton and Riddle end up double teaming on Dolph. Riddle end up nailing a corkscrew senton. He went for the cover, and Ziggler ended up kicking out at 2. Dolph Ziggler ended up kicking Matt Riddle, put him down, and delivered a drop kick. Styles then end up coming in. Styles ended up chopping Matt Riddle into the corner. Both guys ran the ropes. Riddle ended up leveling Styles with a kick to the face. And Styles ended up going for the Styles Clash. Matt Riddle ended up sliding free of it. And he ended up kicking Styles from the mat, sending him back down. So Riddle ended up going for a triangle choke, but Styles ended up resisting that. Styles ended up going for a powerbomb, and they ended up tumbling out to the floor. And Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. Matt Riddle started unloading on Roode in the corner. And Roode ended up catching Riddle with a spine buster. He went for the cover. Riddle ended up kicking out at 2. Roode came back, delivered a vertical suplex, and he tagged in Dolph Ziggler. Dolph ended up dropping the elbow on Riddle, went for the cover, and Riddle ended up kicking out. And we had, later on, Dolph Ziggler was talking some trash to Matt Riddle, and Roode ended up tagging back in. Roode delivered a neck breaker to Riddle, and he went for the cover, and Riddle ended up kicking out too. There was a point in the match where we had Roode end up grabbing Orton from behind. Orton ended up kicking Roode, sent him into the ropes, knocking Omos off of the apron. So Roode ended up getting knocked out to the floor by Orton. Styles ended up springboarding into the ring. Orton ended up dodging him. Orton then ended up sending Styles out of the ring, and Omos ended up catching Styles. Orton and Omos were staring each other down. Omos was still at ringside, and so Monday Night Raw went to commercial. And this is what they did. This is what they did last week, where you had Orton and Omos just going at it, like they were talking trash to each other, and then it cut away. Same thing, what we saw last night happened. So Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. Omos was shown scooping Montez Ford up, ended up dropping him face first into the top turnbuckle, and then he leveled him with a big boot. So Roode ended up coming in, ended up headbutting Montez Ford to take over. Dolph ended up coming back in, and him and Roode were taking turns on Montez Ford to keep control of the match. And at the end of the match, we had Omos end up staring Dawkins down. He stepped over the top rope to come into the ring. Dawkins ended up attacking Omos, but Omos then chokeslammed Dawkins, and Ford ended up flying in from the apron. Omos caught him, and Omos ended up shoving Ford over the top rope out to the floor. Matt Riddle came in, and Orton tried to stop him, but Matt Riddle ended up ignoring Orton's advice, and Riddle ended up attacking Omos, delivering some knee strikes to him. Omos ended up blocking the shot, and of course, once again, Omos ends up laying out Matt Riddle. So Orton and Omos stare each other down again. Dolph Ziggler and Roode end up pulling Orton to the floor to stop him from going in at Omos, and they both end up sending Orton into the ring steps. Omos liked what he saw, and Styles was asking for a tag. He was asking Omos to tag him, but Dolph Ziggler ended up tagging himself in, and Styles was yelling at Dolph because He wasn't happy about that. Roode ended up pulling Styles to the floor, started yelling at him. Omos ended up grabbing Roode from behind, launched him into the barricade. Dolph ended up crawling in. He ended up covering Matt Riddle. And there you go. Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, Styles, and Omos ended up winning the match. Post-match, Orton ended up coming in. Orton ended up dropping Dolph with the RKO. And Orton ended up telling Matt Riddle to listen to him if he wants to keep the Raw Tag Team titles. So, that was that. But overall, this was an okay match, in my opinion. So now we had Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens ended up interrupting both Rey and Dominik Mysterio backstage. Kevin Owens ended up saying that he was telling Biggie earlier, Rey is another person backstage who he cares about their opinion, and that he needs to know Rey believes in him. Rey ended up telling Kevin Owens that he is occupied with something, but Kevin Owens just needs to know. So Rey ended up saying that he does believe in Owens. So Rey ended up heading out with Dominic. Kevin Owens ended up wishing Rey good luck. And that was that. So then Rey and Dominic made their way to the ring. Adam Pearce was in there. And then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, of course Adam Pearce was still in the ring with the Mysterios. Adam Pearce ended up talking about the Survivor Series pay-per-view and some of the history surrounding the big event. He ended up saying Team Raw has to live up to last year's Team Raw, which swept SmackDown 5-0. So he ended up saying this is why he asked both of the Mysterios to come out. Adam Pearce ended up saying that it's almost embarrassing to admit this. When the Team Raw roster was announced this past weekend, he couldn't help but feel like he made a big mistake, as every member of Team Raw is a former WWE champion, except for Dominic. So Adam Pearce was like, that's an issue for him. Adam Pearce ended up saying that Dominic has a ton of potential, and that he wants Team Raw to win. So Adam Pearce was like, don't get me wrong though, Dominic is still on Team Raw, unless he loses to this man. So Adam Pearce was shown walking off to the back, and then out came the almighty Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley came out along with MVP, who made his return. MVP had knee surgery, so that's why he was out. So made his return last night on Monday Night Raw alongside Bobby Lashley. And so then we had the match. Dominik Mysterio versus Bobby Lashley, where the winner gets added to Team Raw. But this match was awful, in my opinion. So we had Bobby Lashley and Dominic. They both end up locking up. Lashley ended up taking Dominic into the corner. Dominic delivered a headlock on Bobby Lashley. Lashley ended up powering up, ended up slamming Dominic, leveled Dominic with a shoulder. So Lashley was shown talking trash to Rey. He ended up sending Dominic into the corner. Lashley then delivered a running shoulder thrust to Dominic. He ended up going for a suplex, but Dominic ended up fighting out with a knee to Lashley's head. Dominic ended up fighting back from the apron. He ended up going up to the top, and Lashley ended up catching Dominic, delivered a crossbody in midair, but Dominic ended up getting free. Lashley started charging in at Dominic, but Dominic ended up dumping him over the top rope out to the floor. Dominic then launched himself out of the ring. Bobby Lashley ended up catching him again. So Lashley ended up running Dominic headfirst into the ring post. Adam Pearce was shown watching backstage. So Lashley ended up bringing Dominic back into the ring, ended up stepping on him to keep him down. Lashley ended up grabbing Dominic and drove him face first into the mat. Lashley then scooped Dominic again to lock in the Hurt Lock, and Dominic started fading. Lashley ended up stopping Dominic from submitting. So Lashley was just manhandling Dominic, launching him from under the bottom rope out to the floor. Lashley then followed and scooped Dominik up again and rammed Dominik into the ring post. Rey ended up snatching Dominik away from him. So Lashley ended up dropping Rey. He ended up kicking Rey. And he then rammed Dominik headfirst into the ring post, anyway. So Lashley then rolled Dominik back in. Lashley was waiting in the corner and delivered a spear as Dominik ended up getting up to his feet. So Lashley ended up applying the Hurt Lock on Dominik again. He was ragdolling him. So Dominik ended up tapping out. So there you go. Bobby Lashley ended up winning the match. So now Lashley has taken Dominik's spot on Team Raw at Survivor Series. Which makes sense. Like, why would you had Dominik there when Bobby Lashley should have been in Team Raw in the first place? But no, Bobby Lashley had to have a match with Dominik to get in for Team Raw. Didn't WWE realize that this guy was their former WWE champion for the year? They could have put Bobby Lashley in there. But no, we saw Dominik and Rey in there. It makes sense for Bobby Lashley to be on Team Raw since he was the former WWE champion for this year. Makes sense. Do we all really want to see Dominik on Team Raw for Survivor Series? So WWE did the right thing. Bobby Lashley is now a part of Team Raw for Survivor Series. And then we saw the Alpha Academy, Otis and Chad Gable. They were shown warming up. Seth Rollins ended up approaching them. So Rollins ended up asking them about what they think about the whole Kevin Owens situation. Chad Gable ended up saying that Rollins has come to the right place. So Chad Gable was bragging about him graduating Full Sail and getting his GPA. He ended up saying that he can categorically confirm that Kevin Owens is a huge liar. So Chad Gable ended up saying that he is handing out free lessons tonight, courtesy of the Alpha Academy. So they were making fun of Aaron Rodgers and Big E. So Rollins and Gable looks like they're on the same page. They all agree about Kevin Owens. So that was that. And now we had Biggie versus Chad Gable. And this match was just meh, in my opinion. Biggie ended up making his way out to the ring. And then came the Alpha Academy. Match started. Gable ended up going behind on Big E. Both of them were trading holds. Biggie ended up wrapping... Chad Gable ended up wrapping Big E up. And they were running the ropes. Big E ended up leaping over Chad Gable, leveled him with a back elbow. So Big E went for the cover, and Gable ended up kicking out at 2. Big E ended up dragging Chad Gable to the apron, and he was delivering some strikes to Gable. So Big E ended up getting back on the apron. He ended up nailing the splash to Chad Gable on the apron. So Big E was shown dragging Chad Gable back into the middle of the ring. He went for the cover. Gable ended up kicking out at 2. So Big E was keeping control of the match. Chad Gable ended up trapping Big E in the corner by his legs and delivered a dragon screw leg whip. So Gable was focusing on Big E's leg as Otis was looking on. So later on, we had Chad Gable end up coming back into the ring. Big E ended up going for a belly-to-belly suplex, and it was countered as Chad Gable ended up delivering a belly-to-belly of his own to Big E. Gable then ended up going up to the top and delivered a nice-looking moonsault. He ended up smashing down with knees to Big E's chest. So Big E ended up kicking out. So at the end of the match, we had Big E end up delivering the big ending to Chad Gable. Went for the cover, and there you go. Big E end up winning the match. Post-match, Otis ended up rushing into the ring, and Big E ended up standing tall, and Otis ended up coming face-to-face with Big E. So both guys were having a few words. The referee ended up getting in between them, and that was that. But it looks like we're going to get Biggie versus Otis there. I can tell that they're going to do it. But overall, just a very meh match. And then we saw Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens was backstage with R-Truth. Kevin Owens ended up telling R-Truth, like he told Rey and Biggie earlier, he cares about what R-Truth thinks. Because R-Truth is a locker room leader. Really? Really now? R-Truth is a locker room leader for the 24/7 title. So he could tell his buddies, oh, let's go chase after Reggie for the title. So Kevin Owens ended up asking if R-Truth believes in him. And R-Truth ends up believing in Kevin Owens. So R-Truth ended up going on about also believing in conspiracy theories, various conspiracy theories. As, you know, Kevin Owens ended up walking off, R-Truth was still going on about him believing in stuff. Awful. This was awful. So then we saw the whole Raw Women's division backstage with Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce. So Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce end up talking about the women's team for Team Raw. Sonya Deville end up congratulating Carmella, Queen Zelina, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley. Congratulate them on what? For just lazying their way into the Team Raw match? Because WWE end up announcing on social media the teams for the men and women for Team Raw and Team SmackDown for Survivor Series. They just put superstars' names into a hat and just drew them out just like that. And then just stuck them to the wall. Got no qualifying matches. WWE took the lazy way out. Really congratulating Carmella, Selena Vega, Queen Zelina, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley. For what? What have these women done to earn a spot for the women's Team Raw at Survivor Series? Nothing. So Sonya Deville ended up thinking that they start off tonight with a fatal 5-way, and the winner will earn a future title shot to take on Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. So then Doudrop ended up asking Sonya Deville why she wasn't included for Team Raw over someone like Bianca Belair. So we had Bianca Belair and Doudrop. They were having a few words, which led to an argument among the other women. So Adam Pearce ended up trying to calm them, and Dana Brooke ended up interrupting. She ended up going on about how she paid her dues, and it's time others paid her some respect. Respect for what? This woman is not even on TV that much. And it's time, and she says it's time for the others to pay her some respect. Dana Brooke is awful in the ring. So then Nikki ASH spoke up. So Carmella ended up knocking Nikki. Rhea Ripley ended up defending her. She's like, oh, that's my tag team partner there. So it led to an argument with everyone getting into it. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville tried to calm it down. Awful. This was fucking awful. So then we saw Rey Mysterio backstage. Rey Mysterio was in the trainer's room with his son Dominic, as Dominic ended up getting checked on. Kevin Patrick ended up approaching both Rey and Dominic for comments. Rey ended up saying that it looks like Dominic suffered a neck strain. Rey ended up saying that was a bunch of BS out there, and that Adam Pearce went about it the wrong way. He ended up saying that Bobby Lashley isn't here to win matches, it appears, and that Bobby Lashley is here to do damage, and that he damaged his son, that he damaged Dominic. So Kevin Patrick then walked off. Austin Theory ended up appearing. Theory ends up taking a selfie while the trainer was tending to Dominic. Rey ended up and Rey ended up not seeing Austin Theory there, as Theory ended up taking a selfie. So that was that. Oh, and then we went to this shit. The 24/7 title, this garbage-ass title, was on the line. It was Drake Maverick versus Reggie. I'm not talking about this shit. So we had Drake Maverick end up winning the match because we had R-Truth walking down the ramp. He got dropped from behind by Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. So I'm like, Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, they're now chasing after the 24/7 title? Oh my God. So Drake Maverick took advantage of that distraction. He ended up rolling Reggie up for the win. So Drake Maverick then won the 24/7 title. And this just gave me a fucking headache right here. Literally. So after the bell, Akira Tozawa ended up rushing out. He ended up rolling Drake Maverick for the pin. So Akira Tozawa won the 24/7 title. And then Corey Graves got up from the commentary table. He ended up rolling Tozawa up, and Corey Graves won the title. Then Byron Saxton got up, rolled up Corey Graves. Byron Saxton won the title. Then Drake Maverick came from behind, rolled Byron Saxton up, regained the title, regained the 24/7 title. And then Reggie ended up hitting him with a flying corkscrew. Reggie ended up covering Drake Maverick, and then Reggie got it back. And then Reggie ended up leaping over the top rope, retreated up the ramp with the title. This was fucking terrible. This was so goddamn awful. Literally gave me a fucking headache after the title went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This title needs to be off television. It needs to be fucking retired. Why is this still a thing? Why? It's fucking awful. This shit. This 24/7 title needs to get the fuck off TV. It needs to be retired. I don't know why WWE is still keeping this a thing. It's not funny anymore. It hasn't been funny since it debuted. But this was a fucking circus. This was fucking awful. Terrible. This title needs to be off fucking TV. It needs to be fucking retired. Then we went to the Fatal 5-Way, where the winner gets to have a title opportunity to face Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. So it was Carmella versus Queen Zelina Vega versus Liv Morgan versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. We had Becky Lynch on commentary during this match, which her commentary was fucking awful. And what the fuck did Becky look last night? How stupid did she look last night with the fucking hair and her attire that she was wearing? It looked like she stole that from Lady Gaga's closet. Man, if you thought her husband Seth Rollins coming out in the blue coat earlier in the night was bad, look how Becky Lynch looked. I mean, are Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch dressing themselves? Oh, they think so well. They think alike. That's a husband and wife there. So we had Bianca Belair backstage. Doudrop ended up approaching her. Doudrop was frustrated over how Bianca keeps getting title shot after title shot after she ends up coming up short. So Bianca ended up walking off. She didn't want to hear from Doudrop. So Bianca Belair ended up making her way out. And then Carmella came out. We had Carmella delivered a pre-recorded promo. She was talking about being the diamond of WWE, which is rare, rich, and expensive. And she ended up saying soon we will have to call her the most beautiful Raw Women's Champion. Yeah, not happening. So Becky ended up saying that she doesn't believe it will happen. Agree with Becky there. So then Liv Morgan was out, and then Zelina Vega, Queen Zelina, ended up making her way out. So Zelina Vega also gave a pre-recorded promo. She ended up saying how she's the only one who can give the Raw Women's Championship the royal treatment that it deserves. So Zelina Vega has this whole queen thing with her. Why is she speaking in accent? She's like, oh, well, I'm going to give the only one the royal treatment for the Royal Women's Championship. Like, that accent, that whole fucking accent is terrible on her. Why is she talking like that? So then, next, out came last was Rhea Ripley. So we had a brawl break out at ringside to start off the match. Well, the match didn't start because the bell didn't ring. So a brawl ended up breaking out at ringside. We had officials trying to restore, all these women. So Becky was just barking at Bianca Belair from the announce table. And Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. The bell ended up ringing. Carmella and Rhea Ripley were going at it while Bianca ended up tossing Zelina Vega out to the floor. And of course, Carmella still had the stupid mask on her face. I'm like, please get rid of the mask off of Carmella. It just looks uglier and uglier every time that she wears it. Carmella doesn't need a mask on her face. So Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley end up facing off in the ring. Carmella and Zelina Vega end up running back in. They end up attacking. So Bianca Belair and Zelina Vega end up going out to the floor. So Rhea Ripley and Carmella were on the other side of the ring. Rhea Ripley ended up sending Carmella into the barricade. Bianca Belair ended up inviting Rhea Ripley back into the ring. So Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley lock up. Bianca Belair end up going behind. They end up trading holds on their feet. Carmella and Zelina Vega end up tripping Bianca Belair from the floor. They end up pulling her out. They both end up sending Bianca Belair into the barricade. So we had Rhea Ripley end up headbutting Zelina Vega. She ended up taking Carmella down, ended up delivering a drop kick to her. So we had Rhea Ripley being double teamed in the corner. Zelina Vega ended up missing the double knees as Rhea Ripley ended up moving. Liv Morgan ended up coming in, started unloading on Carmella with some right hands. Liv ended up delivering a running hip attack and a jumping knee to Carmella in the corner. So at the end of the match, we had Liv Morgan tried to stop Bianca Belair from delivering the KOD to Zelina Vega. Bianca Belair ended up kicking Liv out of the ring, ended up dropping Zelina Vega with the KOD. Bianca went for the cover, and Doudrop ended up dragging Bianca Belair out to the floor and took her out. So Doudrop was punching Bianca Belair, and she sent Bianca Belair face first into the ring post. So it looks like Doudrop turned heel again. So Doudrop was staring down at Bianca Belair. Carmella ended up scrabbling. She tried to steal the pin on Zelina Vega, but Liv Morgan ended up rolling her over. So there you go. Liv Morgan ended up winning the match, and Liv Morgan is now the number one contender to face Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. And Becky was shocked at that. So Becky Lynch was looking on from ringside post-match. She ended up standing on the announce table, raising the Raw Women's Championship in the air. So that was that. So, but Liv Morgan, she's not winning the Raw Women's Championship. We all know that. But overall, the match was okay. This Fatal 5-Way. And then Seth Rollins ended up approaching Big E backstage. And Seth Rollins was like, oh, I'm not looking for any trouble. Rollins ended up saying that there's no way Big E or anyone else can believe what comes out of Kevin Owens' mouth. So Rollins ended up saying that it's much better to trust the devil he knows. So Rollins was like, oh, don't trust the one that he doesn't, and that is Kevin Owens. So Big E ended up saying that he doesn't trust both Rollins or Owens, and that he will be sitting at ringside to make sure things go smooth. So that was that. Main event, Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens. So Big E ended up making his way out to watch the match. He ended up joining the announcers for commentary. So then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we see that on Friday on SmackDown, they announced it's going to be Roman Reigns versus King Xavier Woods. So there you go. That's for Friday for SmackDown. Roman Reigns going to be running over Xavier Woods. We all know that Reigns is winning. Not surprised about that. So then Austin Theory was shown with his phone out. Austin Theory was just taking selfies at ringside. I'm like, Austin Theory randomly goes out there and he starts taking selfies. What the fuck? That's what Austin Theory did. He just went out there randomly, taking selfies. You know, I had the cell phone here. I was like, that's what Austin Theory was doing. So, out came Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins ended up making his way down to the ring. He got on the mic. He ended up saying that he needs to get something off his chest. Something important that has been weighing on his conscience all week. Rollins ended up saying that he knows he said that Kevin Owens is a liar. And that it's true. He ended up saying that he's not the only one who has been lying. So Rollins ended up telling Biggie that what happened last week was a plan between him and Kevin Owens. It was planned weeks in advance to make Biggie understand that he's not the face of Raw. So Rollins ended up going on about how he's coming clean. And then Kevin Owens ended up coming out. Kevin Owens marched his way down to the ring. He started brawling with Seth Rollins. So Rollins ended up retreating. Kevin Owens ended up following him. So Rollins was just in the crowd. He was looking at Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens was yelling at him to come back over the barricade. And Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, the match ended up starting. Both Owens and Rollins ended up facing off. Owens ended up rushing Rollins, started unloading with some left and rights. Rollins then ended up dodging a shot. He ended up ducking, rolling out to the floor. Kevin Owens ended up chasing him back into the ring, but Rollins was stomping away at Owens. Owens ended up decking Rollins, ended up whipping him hard into the turnbuckles. Owens ended up going to work on Rollins, started headbutting Rollins down in the corner. Rollins then retreated out to the floor once again. So Owens ended up approaching Rollins. Rollins ended up kicking him, sending him into the apron. So Owens ended up whipping Rollins into the barricade. He ended up clotheslining Rollins. And then Owens ended up nailing a senton on the floor to Rollins. So Owens ended up breaking up the referee's count. He ended up going back to ringside. And he delivered a leap and shot into the barricade on Rollins. So Owens ended up keeping control of the match. He brought Rollins back into the ring and delivered a chop in the corner. Kevin Owens ended up heading up to the top. Rollins ended up rolling to the apron. And Owens ended up kicking him. And he went for a ring apron powerbomb, but Rollins ended up blocking that. He went for Owens' knee. So Rollins ended up going for a suplex on the apron, but it got blocked by Owens. Owens ended up sending Rollins face first into the edge of the commentary table. Owens then ended up going for a senton from the apron, but Rollins ended up getting his knees up. So Rollins then ended up slamming Kevin Owens into the front of the commentary table. So as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Rollins ended up rolling Kevin Owens for a 2 count. Rollins was continuing to dominate on Kevin Owens. Biggie was still looking on from the table, from the commentary table. Rollins ended up stopping the taunt Biggie, and he went back to stomping on Kevin Owens. He dropped an elbow on Owens. Owens got back up, started unloading with some punches. Rollins ended up taking back control of the match by dropping Kevin Owens with a knee to his gut. He went for the cover. Owens kicked out at 2. So there was a point where Rollins ended up delivering a buckle bomb, and he went for the stomp to follow it up, but Owens ended up catching him and delivered a pop-up power bomb. And Owens went for the cover, and Rollins ended up kicking out at 2. Owens couldn't believe it. And There was also a point where Rollins ended up climbing up for a superplex. Owens ended up headbutting him down to the mat. Rollins leapt back up to go for another superplex attempt, and Owens ended up countering that with a fisherman suplex, and they both went down to the mat. So Kevin Owens was then going for a stunner, but it got blocked by Rollins. Rollins ended up delivering an elbow to the back of the neck to knock Owens out of the ring. So Rollins ended up leaping off the ring steps, crashing into Kevin Owens, and they both go tumbling into the chair that Big E was sitting in, but Big E ended up moving out of the way. Rollins ended up rushing back to the ring. He ended up barely making it in, and Kevin Owens ended up trying to also rush back in, but he collided with Big E, and Kevin Owens ended up losing the match, so Rollins ended up winning the match by countout. So then, post-match, Kevin Owens ended up snapping at Big E, started a load on Big E, dropped him at ringside, sent Big E into the ring steps. So he's continuing to beat down on Big E. Kevin Owens delivered a pop-up powerbomb onto the edge of the apron to Big E. So Kevin Owens was just screaming out, and he was blaming Big E for the loss. So Kevin Owens was led away by the officials, but he ended up running back over. He ended up stomping Big E while he was down. So that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air last night. You know, Kevin Owens was just screaming. So Kevin Owens turned heel, like we said was going to happen. So there you go. But overall, the match was okay, in my opinion. But overall, the show was still terrible. But anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.